And we'll keep working to bring hostages home and end the war in Gaza and bring peace and security to the Middle East. As you know, I wrote a peace treaty for Gaza. A few days ago, I put forward a proposal that brought us closer to doing that than we've done since October 7th. We're working around the clock, my Secretary of State, to prevent a wider war and reunite hostages with their families and surge humanitarian health and food assistance into Gaza now.
Okay, go ahead and pause there, Gary. So he's talking about here that Israel was attacked by Iran, and we're going to help them like we have helped them in the past. Meaning, I think back in June, April or May, I can't remember which month it was when Israel attacked. But what he doesn't mention there is why Iran attacked Israel, and that is the crucial part. Because when he characterizes this, and certainly all the people in that audience were overwhelmingly applauding, it makes it sound like Israel's just sitting around there doing nothing, and all of a sudden, here comes these darn old mean Iranians attacking them. But we're supporting Israel as they're violating international rules left and right, like when they destroyed an embassy compound in Syria, the Iranian embassy compound, and then when they assassinated the chief negotiator for the Hamas side that we claimed were trying to get to a negotiated settlement to match our policies in Tehran, in their capital city, during a presidential inauguration. And I just ask you, I mean, just first of all, if anyone was assassinated during a presidential inauguration in America and some other country took them out in Washington, D.C., do you think that we would say, well, I mean, that was an issue between y'all, so we get that? Or would we do something more?
Dan, I don't know these days. I mean, America has changed. Its government has changed. I really don't know. What I do know is that you're correct. This business of blaming Iran, or for that matter, anybody else in the Middle East for everything that's wrong, is not only misguided, it's stupid, and it's bad policy. But we've adopted that. The Israelis have insisted upon it. And the truth of the matter is that Mr. Netanyahu, not Mr. Biden or his administration, is in charge of what's happening in the Middle East. When I say in the Middle East, I mean he controls what we will or will not do militarily. We don't. He's got control of the Congress, and we are going to unconditionally support him until somehow or another it harms us. And when it harms us in a demonstrable way, not a way in which it can be concealed, the way in which you have been describing the deterioration of America's position in the world, that's when we'll see change. But right now, everyone is obedient to the orders of President Netanyahu. And the Iranians have held back for many reasons. One, of course, is that I don't think they're satisfied that they're completely ready to deal with Israel. They've got a lot of new equipment, technology, and capabilities that the Russians have provided to them. They want to make sure that they are in good shape. They also were asked explicitly to exercise restraint and wait, and hopefully there would be some sort of settlement in Gaza, because the Iranians have said from the beginning, if the war in Gaza ends and the massive expulsion and killing of millions of people ends, then that'll be the end of it for us. In fact, everyone in the Middle East has made that point. That's why I think that Mr. Netanyahu is in charge, because he has no interest in ending that at all. He wants to wage a war on multiple fronts. He wants to settle all his disputes with all of his neighbors in the region.
And that may be his interest. It's not the interest, I don't believe, of Israel, because it can't be accomplished, but that may be his. It's definitely not in ours. And in that clip there, Gary, if you can pull that back up there, here's the last part of what he said also.
And end the war in Gaza and bring peace and security to the Middle East. As you know, I wrote a peace treaty now to end the civilian suffering of the Palestinian people and finally finally deliver a ceasefire and end this war.
See, that's enough. That's enough there, Gary. I think that people think that Biden is doing everything he can to bring the war to an end, and only these darn Iranians and Hamas and Hezbollah people are the only roadblocks to it. But as you just pointed out there, Doug, it's actually Netanyahu who is blocking and subverting every possibility. Even when we get close to making something happen, he seems to undercut it and then ask us for more bombs in the process, and we deliver them. And it's just painful to watch, even though you laid out the reasons why that is.
Well, for him, remember, this is a once in a century opportunity to, in his mind, to eliminate everyone in the region who refuses to bend the knee to Israel. That's effectively what it comes down to, and to establish the supremacy of his state in the region without any condition. So that's part of the problem. There's another issue here, though, that I think is very important, and we need to understand this. Biden doesn't know what he's talking about. I just don't think he does. I'm not saying he's lying. I just think this is someone who has no business being president. He's not mentally competent. We'll see what happens next. But I think at this point, listening to anything he says and taking it seriously is a real mistake.
And let me ask you this on a practical. Just take the emotions, even take the morality out of it for the moment. Is there any possibility that Netanyahu could accomplish what he wants, i.e., to get rid of the Palestinian problem, to get rid of the Hezbollah problem, and to get rid of the Iranian problem? Is there any possibility that he could actually accomplish that, so that there is some big Israeli state from the river to the sea that doesn't include any Arabs and is secure?
I think if it were ever possible, it is now impossible, because they have successfully alienated everyone in the Islamic world. And the Islamic world now has allies in the form of Russia and China, perhaps India and others, who are not going to stand for that. I think we have to go back to what one of General Sisi's staff officers said after a visit from Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State. He said, "We have all grown tired of listening to Mr. Blinken repeat Mr. Netanyahu's talking points." If that doesn't tell you who is in charge and what's really happening,